Today's video dedication is brought to you with thanks from Dan Kirch. Solphim versus Kozilek with some decent ramp in our hand in Mana Crypt, so I think we have to try that one. We are on the play here, so start things off with the Mana Crypt and go into the Kessig Flame Breather. Unfortunately, seeing some fast mana from our opponent as well in the Mana Vault, although they do tap it down straight away, so getting down a tapped Warm Power Stone as well. Alright, and there is a Ruby Medallion for us. I think we just have to go into our commander here. So with Solphim in play, we will swing in with the Kessig Flame Breather and deal just 1 damage to our opponent. Kozilek, oh wow, has a totally stacked hand here, so a wastes into a Mana Crypt means they've got 6 mana available here, and we'll soon be seeing the Kozilek, unfortunately. Deciding not to do anything here, and I'll assume that they're just going to untap the Mana Vault next turn. Do manage to get into a land, so yeah, unfortunately can't go Inferno Titan. It'll have to be the Ruby Medallion. That'll be 2 damage to our opponent, usually 1 from the Kessig Flame Breather. Then it can be a 2 mana Browbeat and have our opponent lose 2 to the Flame Breather again. I doubt they're going to take the 6 damage to the Browbeat, but we'll see if they want to give us some card draw here. We certainly don't want to take it. Okay, they do take it, so going down to 24. We'll deal a further 6 damage to them in combat here, assuming that they don't have any removal. So we've got our opponent down to 18. They'll potentially take a damage to the Mana Vault, maybe 3 to the Mana Crypt as well. Looks like they are untapping Mana Vault ready for the Kozilek next turn, so we really want to be burning them out as quickly as possible. So they won't take a ping to the Mana Vault. We'll see if they stay at 18 here. And they do get bolted down to 15. That's obviously really good for us. Managed to make another waste, so we'll definitely have enough for their commander next turn. That is a Crown of Empires, so can tap a creature down with that. We lose to the Crypt as well. There is a Bloodstained Mire for us. Don't have any means of haste for the Inferno Titan, so we will see if we can attack in here. Don't imagine they'll want to tap down the Mana Vault, but yeah, looks like they are doing it. So trying to slow us down here. Crown of Empires taps down our commander. And we'll swing in at them for 1 anyway with the Flame Breather. Certainly going to give them a Lightning Bolt with the Inferno Titan. So play and crack the Bloodstained Mire, and then drop the Inferno Titan for only 5 mana. Get a trigger from it entering, so we'll point the Lightning Bolt at our opponent. They go from 14 down to 8. And yeah, we're just encouraging our opponent to wipe the board next turn pretty much, because I doubt they'll be able to get their commander down here. Dodging the bolt from the Crypt this time, but they do take the 1 damage to the Mana Vault. Okay, that is a Metalwork Colossus. I imagine we're going wide on our opponent next turn. We do get another series of pings from our opponent from the Inferno Titan. Getting bolted by Crypt again, we go down to 30. And there is a Nykthos trying to Nyx, pretty useless to us, so let's just swing in here. Go completely wide on our opponent. Inferno Titan pointed straight at our opponent again. And our opponent just decides to scoop it. Yeah, that's fair enough. We definitely had them there. Let's see what else we were drawing into. It's not going to show us. Had we have lost our commander there, then we could have just replayed it. Yeah, outracing Kozilek. We'll play another one. Alright, don't fancy my odds here. One of the most powerful decks in the format, Rograk and Tevesh Sat. And just to make things even worse, we've only got a 1 lander, so we'll mulligan. Into a 3-lander, we will try it. Get rid of 1 land to make it a 3-lander. And our opponent's starting the game off with a Gemstone Caverns in play. So we're just holding up Electrickery, mostly for the Rograk, I imagine. Going for a discard spell, first of all. So they have to take our Electrickery there. And then managing to keep their Rograk thanks to that. Wasteland is only on non-basics, so don't have to worry about that too much. And that is a spell shock for us, so no turn to play unfortunately. Alright, a Fiery Emancipation here. Don't think there's too much point in trying to ramp out with the Cursed Mirror. Maybe a spell shock will be alright, because I imagine our opponent wants to play a lot of spells in that deck. And there we see a Tainted Pact, so they're looking to combo off already. Okay, seeing some stuff in exile here. You can have a look at it at your own desire here. Let me just expand it, and you can pause the video and have a look if you would like. Then we see Infernal Plunge, so Going to add triple red, Spell Shock will shock our opponent. And then see Vraska, Betrayal, Sting. Don't think I've played against this one yet. And they draw a card, lose a life, and proliferate, putting another counter on the Gemstone Caverns, as well as, of course, on the commander. Didn't point it out actually, but it was the Infernal Plunge that they put into their hand from the Tainted Pact as well. So, don't have to worry about anything that they tutored for there. How about a Sulphuric Vortex now? And that will shock us, because obviously we're casting a spell there. I'm hoping that the Rakdos player is going to struggle to deal with enchantments. Our opponent losing a life again to the Vraska. And then we see a City of Traitors, so they'll have to be careful what lands they make after that. I imagine we see the Tevesh Sat here. Nope, it is a Mind Twist where X is 3. Fun stuff. So we're looking for a land into our commander now, really, I imagine. 2 damage to us as well from the Sulphuric Vortex. Okay, and that's just an Hour of Devastation, so continuing to do a fat wad of nothing. Our opponent goes down to 26 at the upkeep to the Sulphuric Vortex. And of course they have the Feed the Swarm. Yeah, one of the only spells that could have got rid of enchantments, and they just so happen to have it, so really could have used the Spell Shock staying in play, but seems as though it's going to be one of those games where our opponent has absolutely everything, and a Soul Ring just proves our point there. So Rograk into play. Alright, and we get into a land a little bit too late, but we'll drop it anyway and go in for our commander, ready for it to no doubt get blown up straight away. This does mean that the Sulphuric Vortex turns into a Lightning Bolt every turn. They can of course use the Vraska to turn our commander into a treasure, but we can use the mana from it to pay the commander tax, so if we get into a land it won't necessarily be too bad. We could also go for Hour of Devastation to wipe out the Vraska. And Extract Truth, wow, they've got the other means of enchantment removal as well. Yep, absolutely every answer they could ever want here. Alright, there's a Blasphemous Act. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ultimately going to do anything here. Let's go for the Hour of Devastation so we don't have to deal with the Vraska for the rest of the game. So managing to wipe out the Rograk and the Vraska, and now we just wait to see how long it takes our opponent to beat us. Tevesh Sat, Doom of Fools, into play for the first time, making some thralls. Okay, a Chaos Warp. Yeah, can just go after the Tevesh Sat with that, I suppose. And it revealed there a Vamp Tutor, because of course they have a tutor. But they're just able to hardcast the Tevesh Sat again straight away, so sacrificing a thrall to draw a couple of cards. Then they drop a Sulphurous Springs, so have to sacrifice the City of Traitors. And they've managed to get themselves into a Skull Clamp as well. Alright, a Volcanic Fallout is 2 damage to each creature and each player. Can do it at instant speed, so there's no rush for that. Might get into some fast mana to get our commander into play again. The Planeswalker makes a couple of thralls again, and is going to sack them all to the Skull Clamp, I imagine. Dropping a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer. So might as well go for the Volcanic Fallout now and try and hurt our opponent. They didn't go for the Skull Clamp, and we can get rid of this Ragavan as well. So we are hopefully slowly buying ourselves a bit of time. They drop a Crystal Vein, getting into more lands than us unfortunately. A Dragon Rage Channeler. So that comes down as a 3-3 with flying. Alright, there we go, a basic finally. Fortunately, still one away from our Solphim. Noteworthy that if our opponent hadn't got rid of the enchantments, we'd actually be looking pretty good against him here. It's just really unlucky for us that he got into some of the only means of enchantment removal in black. Anyway, killing off a couple of thralls to the Skull Clamp, up to 11 cards in hand. Lightning Bolts us with the Channeler, taking 1 damage to the Painland. And now it is Lily of the Veil, so probably going to make us discard the Act. And then we see Tome of Legends. So triggering the Dragon Rage Channeler, and they decided to surveil a Mana Crypt into the bin. See a Fiery Confluence now, so that is 2 damage to each opponent 3 times. Would be nice if it was 3 damage to our opponent 3 times, we'd have them down to 4. But they can just have us discard here, so we might as well deal the damage while we can. I'll go for 2 damage to each opponent twice and destroy the Skull Clamp, because they're getting way too much value out of that. So knock them down to 9. And there we see a Deflecting Swat, so going to change the targets here. They decide to blow up their Tome of Legends instead, making some thralls and no doubt continuing to take advantage of the Clamp. Then playing a Mox and surveilling a Dark Ritual into the bin. See Marsh Flats hit the bin as well from the Mox Diamond. Then Lily ticking up to have us each discard a card. See the back of a Fire Covenant. And Dragon Rage's Channeler going to Lightning Bolt us again, down to 26. And we see a third Planeswalker in Duretti Ingenious Iconoclast, so even if we eventually get into the mana for the Solphim, we won't be able to keep it in play at this point. And that is another tutor in Demonic Tutor, putting a land in the bin from the Channeler. And we see Simian Spirit Guide come onto the battlefield, so they're trying to deal as much damage to us as they possibly can at this point. See a Bitter Reunion, so yeah, they're just going to have us discard that, aren't they? It's annoying that we don't even have one card available to us. Might be able to get an Inferno Titan into play and give it haste with this though, so might be relevant if we're very, very lucky. Our opponent's actually at the point where he can steal our commander with the Tevesh Sat now, so he might do that. Yep, going for the minus, so gaining control of Solphim and the Rograk from the command zones, creating a construct with the Duretti. Clamp kills off a couple of the Duretti tokens, so staying at 10 cards in hand, dropping a land, and swinging in for 5 damage. And we see a Springleaf Drum, tapping down their Rograk in order to gain a mana from the drum. And it is Sorin the Mirthless, making a Vampire token with that. So the lifelink is not what we want to see in this deck. Ticking up on Lily, and having each of us discard, so they get rid of Rite of Flame, 6 cards in their hand. I'm sure they'll win eventually. Putting Skull Clamp on our commander, and then changing their mind and putting it onto the Channeler. Okay, and there is a Mechanized Warfare. If a red or artifact source we control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it's 1 additional. So, yeah, we actually have to get into some permanents that deal damage in order for that to be useful. Obviously Liliana's forcing us to play everything that we draw into here. Just have to hope that our opponent gets rid of us in the next couple of turns. Playing yet you find some prisoners at the end of the turn, exiling the top 3 cards of our library. Getting from us a couple of lands and a Kessig Flame Breather. So that would be a good one for them to play because they do have the Mayhem Dominus and I'm sure plenty of non-creature lands or non-creature permanents to play. So turning everything in sideways, going to gain 3 life thanks to the Vampire token. And then they're just ticking up walkers and doing the whole Skull Clamp thing again. Talisman triggers the Kessig Flamebreaker to deal 2 damage to us, so we go down to 6. Hopefully they can cast 3 more non-creature spells here and that should do us. Mana Vault, Diabolic Intent, and a Khan the Great Creator. There we go. So, like I said, one of the most powerful decks in the format. No shame in losing to that one. We'll try and get an actual game in now. Solphim versus Brago this time with a 1-lander is obviously no good, so we'll have to go for a mulligan. Okay, and that takes us into a 4-lander with an Inferno Titan. That's really, really slow, but we're not going to do any better apparently, so yeah, do we lose the Inferno Titan? I'll risk getting rid of the Chaos Warp and hope that we get into some ramp. Now turn 1 Sol Ring for our opponent, thankfully we get into a 5th land, so yeah, just limping our way up to that risk factor. Alright, we see a Sin Prodder, so probably playing that on turn 3 instead of the risk factor. And we see a Soul Herder on turn 3 from our opponent. Okay, Reckless Impulse showing up a bit too late unfortunately. Yeah, has to be the Sin Prodder here. And then Brago, King Eternal, so not seeing any benefits to having Flicker stuff shenanigans at the moment. Soul Herder likely flickers Brago just for a plus counter here. And then revealing on the top card of our library, that is a Gutter Snipe, so our opponents can take a Lightning Bolt to that if they want to. Deciding to take 3 to keep us off the Gutter Snipe, so we'll draw into something else. And it is an Arid Mesa, so we'll play and crack Arid Mesa. Our opponent's got 5 cards in hand, so I'd be surprised if Solphim makes it round another turn cycle, but we'll play it anyway here. And then the Sin Prodder does have Menace, so they could get rid of it here by ganging up, but I don't think they're going to throw away the Soul Herder. So we get a Lightning Bolt through to our opponent. Obviously want to deal as much damage as quickly as possible, which is going terribly so far. And yeah, that's what I was afraid of, that we would see the Reality Acid. That's the number 1 permanent that we didn't want to see from Brago. So Brago going to hit us, and then it flickers the Reality Acid. This will come down onto the Sin Prodder, and it will have us sacrifice the Solphim. So we'll see how much damage we can potentially deal to our opponent with the Sin Prodder here. That was a light up the stage. They can quite easily block the Sim Prodder now, so light up the stage isn't necessarily a terrible thing to give us. Alright, decided to take 3 to it, and there's a Flametongue Carvu, so they've let us dig 2 cards further so far. Yeah, let's go for the Flametongue Carvu. And yeah, as much as I want to get rid of Soul Herder here, I think just buying time against the Brago King Eternal is going to be best. Assuming that they don't have a means of flickering, they apparently do not, so Brago going back into the command zone. And then we can get through with the Sim Prodder now, so getting them south of their 30 life total. See a Muldrifter now, and they have just evoked it, so could flicker it in response to the evoke, but instead just deciding to draw 2 and let it go to the bin. So 6 cards in hand now. And we see Arcane Signet. They do seem to be missing lands. And there's nothing for the Soul Herder to flicker, so it stays at 4. So that means that we can get some more damage through in combat here, which is really good for us. Reveal a snow off the top, but we draw into a snow anyway, so drop the Snow Mountain. Just go through to combat here. Swinging with both. Obviously the Sim Prodder has Menace, and the Flametongue Carvu will kill off the Soul Herder, so I wouldn't have thought there'd be any blocks. Dealing 7 damage here. And then I think it's a pretty obvious play. We go for the Inferno Titan. And then we could go for our Commander next turn, and Inferno Titan starts dealing a crazy amount of damage. So as for now, we just Lightning Bolt our opponent to the face. I think we're actually in an alright position here. Our opponent kind of has to get down the Brago, unless he's got another means of consistent flickering, and then if he does get down Brago, it's just kind of sitting there for a turn, ready for us to blow it up. And we're getting pretty close to the Reality Acid going to the bin. One more turn and we'll lose the Sim Prodder, but our opponent will lose the Reality Acid, which is fine with me. Missing that land last turn really hurt because couldn't get the Brago down, ready for swinging in this turn. And yeah, that's probably best case scenario for us, to be honest. Brago King Eternal being replayed, and then Soul Herder does get to go up to 5 power thanks to being able to flicker the Brago. So Sim Prodder, we'll see if it continues to do good things for us. Once again revealing a snow-covered mountain. Okay, puts the Snow Mountain in our hand from the Sim Prodder this time for whatever reason. There is a Burning Earth, so that is really going to pile up on our opponent. Yeah, let's swing in here, I think. Actually, we'll replay our commander first. So Solphim Mayhem Dominus into play again. And we've done way better here than I thought we were going to. I think it's been a pretty good showing for us against Brago. It could have been way worse than this. Turn everything in sideways. We will go for 2 points of damage onto the Brago, which will kill it off, because obviously that's an additional 1 on each of those. So that'll be 4 there. 2 damage there, making it more difficult to block the Flametongue Carvu. And Brago does go down, so they're going to want to be making some blocks at least. Not making any blocks at all. Might as well make use of the Fire Breathing on the Inferno Titan, because we're not going to be doing anything else this turn. So that is 14 damage to our opponent, knocking them down to 4. We do lose the Reality Acid and the Sim Prodder here though. This has been a really, really good card for us this game. Really glad to see the back of Reality Acid though. That could have done a lot of damage to us. If it hadn't been for top decking into the Carvu, then yeah, that would have been bad news for us with Brago in play. Seeing a Seagate Oracle now. Looking at the top 2 cards, one into hand, the other on the bottom. And they will get at least one more chance to do that with the Soul Herder at the end of the turn. 7 cards in hand here. Playing a bounce land. Skyclave Apparition into play, so they do have a decent number of blockers here, and yeah, that gets the Solphim out of play again. So that can go back to the command zone. They'll be able to get rid of the Flametongue Carvu as well if they decide to flicker the Apparition. But we can already afford to recast our commander here, so we can either drop the Burning Earth and give our opponent a headache there, or we likely just replay the commander. Okay, shockingly they go for the Seagate Oracle, so fancying their odds of being able to hold back the Carvu. Not going to punish our opponent for not getting rid of the Carvu though. We draw into a mountain again. We've had a lot of those on top of the library. Thankfully we can recast the Solphim yet again. So down it comes, and Inferno Titan going to continue to do work for us. So we turn the Inferno Titan in sideways. The lightning bolt is dealt to our opponent. That is 6 damage because it's 3 individual pings, each doubled, goes 2, 2 and 2. So that takes our opponent down to -2, and yeah, managed to deal with the Brago. I think that was a pretty easy Brago game compared to what it should have been. We were pretty lucky there, but had a rough game previously, so I'll take that win. Don't imagine there's going to be too much popularity for Solphim when you've got commanders like Torbran available. I think Torbran is a better commander, to be honest. But it's a new one from the set, and some of you might have pulled it and might want to be looking to make a burn deck out of it. So deck list is in the description if you want to, and I will hopefully see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.